Hey Chooms, New from Hades here, and this is the definitive ranking of the endings for Cyberpunk 2077, as determined by yours truly. First things first, a spoiler warning is obviously in order to those who have yet to beat the game, as I'll be going through all the core endings. You have been warned. Now, on to the rankings. To absolutely no one's surprise, the devil ending is just the worst. And this applies to both variations. Unlike the other endings where you have the death of your friends on your conscience, you have your own soul on your conscience this time. You sacrifice your principles for the sake of survival. You sacrifice Johnny for the sake of survival. And even side with the organization that killed your best chum, Jackie Wells, for the sake of survival.
The principle, V. It's always about the principle. Swap meat for chrome, live a BD fantasy, whatever. But at the end of it all, it's the code you live by that defines who you are. Ever get lost? It shows you the way home. Bust up into pieces, it puts you back together again.
That rocker boy Silverhand's credo, words he lived by.
Something Johnny picked up from V. The old V.
To make matters worse, you don't even truly live at the end. You either sell your soul literally to Arasaka and get stored in Mikoshi, or you say screw it and spend your last few months slowly dying. Though if you choose to go back to Night City, you do go back as a legend, to be fair. So it's not all bad. But given that there are better ways to achieve this, I have to put this ending dead last. To make matters worse, the worst corp, aka Arasaka, literally comes out stronger thanks to your actions, which is just bad for all parties involved. I mean, Saburo literally contemplated nuking Night City. Enough said. Just don't do this ending. It's painful, and honestly, I would have never done it if it weren't for the making of this video. You think watching it sucks. Doing it hurts way more, chum. This ending makes sense in some respects, depending on the way you look at it, of course. All the endings require V to make some significant sacrifices in the hopes of staying alive. You can risk the life of the Aldecados and try reach Mikoshi with them, or you can leave it to Johnny, whose plan puts Rogue and her crew at risk.
To let it all go now. Why?
Cleanest, least bloody option. We try anything else, people will die.
People die. It's the way of things.
Am I worth their sacrifice? Are you?
One could interpret V's decision to log out of life to be somewhat selfless. Instead of calling on her allies to make insane risks, she opts to come to terms with her mortality and end it on her own terms, before ultimately losing herself. The issue with this is that it doesn't take into account how her friends would react.
I get it. Why you wanted to leave this place once and for all. But still, V. Did you even think about, what happens when... Shit, I can't do this.
The question as to whether V or Johnny are worth the sacrifice is not their decision to make, but their friends. Pan Am and the Aldecados decide whether they want to risk it all to save a friend in need. Added to that, V ultimately sacrifices Johnny in the process as well. If V opted to do nothing, her soul, for lack of a better term, would have been overwritten by Johnny's, giving him a new lease on life. But I guess having your soul and mind literally overwritten can be considered fate worse than death, so I'll let the Johnny sacrifice slide somewhat. All things considered, logging off very seldomly is the right call, and ultimately V had better options. The only time this ending doesn't compete with the devil ending for last place is when V decides to hand over her body to Johnny in the Don't Fear the Reaper variant. In all other cases, it's kinda messed up. Panam and the Aldecados made the sacrifice for V, not Johnny. And the same thing applies to Rogue. V handing over her body in those situations, or Johnny just stealing it, just doesn't make sense and makes the sacrifices of your Chooms meaningless. So with that out of the way, assuming you did the right move and opted for this ending after going down the Don't Fear the Reaper variant, this ending is quite sad, but beautiful at the same time. In this ending, V comes to terms with her mortality and sacrifices herself for Johnny. An act of maturity and selflessness at the same time. Johnny, on the receiving end of this act of kindness, grows as a person, believe it or not, leaving his life of debauchery behind and making a meaningful effort to just try and be a better person. This ending sees tremendous character growth for both V and Johnny. The part that makes this ending a bit shitty, however, is that V seemingly suffers a fate worse than death and isn't allowed to truly die as hinted by Misty's reading in the epilogue.
But, well, I was wondering how you were doing, so I laid out a quick tarot and... Oh dear. The Hanged Man, the Magician, the Star. Those are not good cards, V. They're really bad. There's something like death, but not quite. Take care of yourself, okay? I hope to hear from you soon.
Added to this, Johnny neglects to explain what happened to V to her closest friends, leaving them completely in the dark. While I wouldn't recommend anyone really do this ending, rather just watch the cutscenes online, but I can't help but acknowledge that narratively speaking, this ending is quite poetic in many respects. The tower ending in my mind is likely the most pragmatic ending, and probably the truest to the cyberpunk theme, as Mike Pondsmith put it.
Cyberpunk isn't about saving humanity, it's about saving yourself.
If you're willing to sacrifice Songbird and condemn her to a fate worse than death, and complete some morally questionable actions to do so, then this ending becomes available. Once this ending is available, it becomes the most logical option for V, but at a great cost.
Figuring out something that might work versus a surgical procedure. Choice is clear, Johnny. Raise and read on the hollow.
In this ending, the FIA basically do a procedure on you, and Johnny is cut out like a tumor, and this ultimately kills him in the process. The surgery isn't without its complications though, and V is then put into a coma for about 2 years, with the added bonus of now not being able to use any military-grade cyberware.
Your neurons can no longer handle most implants. Chrome. Your brain can manage your personal link and simple code processors. But any use of a combat implant, well, it could kill you. I'm sorry, V, but the life you used to know is gone.
To make the situation even shittier, all of your friends for the most part have moved on. Ultimately, V's old life is no longer viable and a way of the past. Despite all these negative consequences and the sacrifices taken to achieve this, V gets to live. Now, many may argue that the price paid was too high, and I'd be inclined to agree, but by V being alive, there's at least some hope that there may be a brighter future ahead. And that, for many, is enough just to push on. This is the one I'll likely catch the most amount of flack on, and I get it 100%. Please stay till the end of the video though, and you'll get my reasoning, hopefully. This ending doesn't need much explanation. It's totally badass. Provided V and Johnny are best chums, V basically storms into Arasaka Tower solo. No planning, no nothing. Literally walking through the front door and just F shit up. It's probably the most deserving to make V a Night City legend, in all honesty. In this ending, V basically is a living legend with virtually unlimited eddies. V's dream has come true, without having to make any real sacrifices, barring Johnny, but he's kind of cool with it, all things considered. Yes, V is still on a timer, but there's hope that the final heist could prove to be V's saving grace. Yeah, if you're dating Pan Am or Judy, your relationship unfortunately comes to an end, but considering all the available options, this definitely has a strong case of being the best ending. I don't personally think so, but I get it if you do. So in this ending, you opt to ask Pan Am and the Eldecados for help, become a member of the clan, and with their assistance, tunnel to Arasaka Tower in order to reach Mikoshi. Two veteran members of the clan and the leader Sol unfortunately end up dying during the mission. However, the heist overall does prove to be a success for the clan as they leave with valuable corpo tech which solves their money problems. Similar to the Don't Fear the Reaper ending, V is still unfortunately on a timer with only give or take 6 months left to live. Like the Don't Fear the Reaper ending, there is still some hope, as Pan Am has some contacts who she believes may be able to fix you ultimately.
Gonna figure this out, Pan Am. Vic's drug helps a bit now. And once we get to where we're going, we'll try all your contacts.
They've pulled some of our folks out of deep, deep cesspits. They'll help. You'll see.
Good to hear. It really is.
At the end, V leaves Night City, literally riding into the sunset with the clan, and Judy, provided you romanced her. River and Carrie are the love interests who opt to stay in Night City, so if you romance them, this may not be the best ending for you. This ending, though, is by far the best in terms of feel-good vibes. It's the closest to a happy ending you can get, especially if you chose the nomad life path. No longer being a loner of sorts, V finally finds a family in the Aldecados, surrounded by peeps who genuinely care about her. Also, compared to the other endings, this seems like the only one where V appears to be genuinely happy. It looks like V finally reached a zen moment in this ending, and is seemingly content with her lot in life. This is a bit contentious, but to me, the Sun ending is the best. Not because it's the happiest ending or the most badass. Those titles belong to the Star and Don't Fear the Reaper ending, respectively. It's the best because of its narrative. Hear me out. In this ending, Johnny takes control in order to save V. Once in control, Johnny reaches out to Rogue and requests her assistance, in the process, having a heart-to-heart. Rogue agrees to help, and Johnny and Rogue's crew storm Arasaka by helicopter, like they did previously back in the day, working their way down the tower in order to get to Mikoshi. During the mission, Johnny gets to kill Adam Smasher, finally getting his revenge, but unfortunately losing Rogue in the process. Once inside Mikoshi, Johnny returns the body back to V, and leaves with the Alt Cunningham AI beyond the Black Wall. Potentially to a fate that could be worse than death. What makes this ending so good is how poetic it is, and the redemption arcs characters go through. Most importantly, Johnny. Johnny lived and died by his principles, yes, but he is also a selfish, egotistical bastard in many respects, sacrificing others in order to achieve his own ends. In this ending, Johnny opts to selflessly save V, showing real character progression.
If you're not ready to die, then you're gonna live.
Johnny. My friend.
Through his time with V, Johnny really developed and grew as a person. Of course, if Johnny and V are best chooms, the soul just hits 100 times harder. You get to see how Johnny grew to really care for V and aim to do right by her. One of the only friends who truly got to know him and weren't turned off by it, rather accepting and embracing him.
Listen, I realize I fucked up a lot of things. Either let down or used every last person who gave me their trust. Blind, selfish bastard that I was. But I've managed one thing for now. Not to fuck this up. What we have.
Rogue also gets some redemption, reclaiming her old self and turning against her former enemies turned friend, standing up against Arasaka. The Sun ending after Mikoshi is still pretty much the same as the Don't Fear the Reaper ending. Some parts of the ending, though, still manage to hit a bit different. When you're walking in V's mansion and you hear Black Dog by Samurai, you can't help but feel a bit melancholic as you see V put on Johnny's jacket, honoring her late rocker boy Choom. It really makes you think of Johnny and his sacrifice. In the finale, as V begins the Crystal Palace space mission, Never Fade Away suddenly plays in the background, getting louder as V approaches the station. Although Johnny is dead, he still lives on in V. Doing the Sun ending just makes those final moments hit a little bit more impactful, a bit more meaningful. Which is why, in my humble opinion, the Sun ending is the best, narratively speaking.